I think we can improve the pace of
Mm-hmm.
delivering, of shipping. We have been shipping. I think it's a bear. We don't have that huge of a budget. We're mostly self-funded. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it's one of the most complex state machines that you can find, but we still ship. And that makes me happy, but we still need to go faster.
Earlier this year, I interviewed Aaluxx, the founder of the Maya protocol, on the exciting project and fork of THORChain before it had even actually properly launched. Now, about 9 or so months later, it has launched. It is actually doing active trading, and there have been all kinds of interesting hiccups and things like that along the way. So I decided to check back in with Aaluxx and kind of get his perspective on what's happened so far and where Maya's going from there. Also, since then, I decided to become a Maya ambassador myself, so keep that in mind for any potential conflicts of interest. However, I definitely didn't hold back on asking some of the tough questions, especially regarding things like the stuck Dash transactions that have happened for a while and other things like that. As always, do your own research and judge for yourself. So, hey everyone, I have the fantastic pleasure of once again speaking with the one and only Aaluxx. How's it going, man?
Hi guys, hello sir. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no problem. I can't remember when was the last time we did an interview. It was probably December, somewhere in November, December last year. It was like before the end of the year, I think.
Yeah, I think we might have another one later, but I'd have to check that up. I have that
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. There was I think I did a Dash podcast, which was a live podcast, which is not technically an interview, I guess, sort of. So that must be what the one it was in between. But I remember the first time we had just a regular, purely Maya based interview was before there was such a thing as Maya protocol in the real world. So it's an exciting time. So first off, retrospective, right?
Hmm.
How have things been? How would you kind of categorize this last it says it 9 months ago was when we first spoke. So that's like a baby's gestation period, right? So the last
Yeah,
9 months, how has it been from your perspective?
actually, I have a link with all my interviews
Mm-hmm.
available on our docs. It was on the 18th of January, still before the launch, but it was this year already. So
Mm,
time flies away.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, doing great. Uh, Very happy to see kind of 2 years of work culminate in something that's actually uh, in some semblance working. Obviously, there's always quirks and little things, but 99% of the time it's working, and that's more than we can ask for.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's always differing of expectations, right? In some senses, I feel we are kind of exceeding the expectations I had. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, the community support and how people put on the camiseta, like we would say in
Mm-hmm.
Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
I find that incredible, super inspiring. The community support through good and bad has been amazing, and I'm super thankful for that. I expect at the end of the day, you might expect less when you're speaking about a community of anonymous people
Of
that has
course.
no connection to you. You don't know them. You don't know their faces. You just know their kind of the tag, the username, and you don't expect that you can form such a tight community of people that believe in what you're building. So yeah, that's exceeding my expectations. Also, on the liquidity side of things, we hit it out of the park during the auction, and we've managed to keep most of it despite unlocks, despite uh, um, perhaps going a bit slower on the roadmap. So that makes me also very happy. Um, so that has exceeded my expectations, and also the interest from user interfaces to have us in. Then what has kind of been below my expectations, and that might be me being critical of us, uh, is the pace. I think we can improve the pace of
Mm-hmm.
delivering, of shipping. We have been shipping. I think it's a bear. We don't have that huge of a budget. We're mostly self-funded, uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it's one of the most complex state machines that you can find. But we still ship, and that makes me happy. But we still need to go faster, and we need to find creative ways on how we can go faster safely. So that's one thing. Um, while I said that the interest from user interfaces to have us to integrate Maya has been greater than I expected, their pace has also been slower than I
Yeah, of
expected.
course.
So sometimes I'll see somebody that really, really wants to have Maya, but because of their team or because of whatever, they set kind of this arbitrary goal, like once you have this or once you have that. And then once we do have that, they'll be a bit slower. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just, again, shuffling priorities. And it's the same why we cannot have a good pace yet at Maya. Uh, there's just so many things going on. You're talking about mainnet, you're talking about debugging, you're talking about maintaining a StageNet and server costs down. You're talking about actually coding and then reviewing that code and then testing that code. So you have kind of these pipelines. And if you focus too much on one thing, you'll probably let go of something somewhere else. So then you
Mm-hmm.
have to go back and fix mistakes. And my guess is user interfaces are also much more that way than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
This means that having new things, it's tougher for them as well. So yeah, that's kind of the nuance of it. But uh, in general, I'm happy, and we just need to keep improving every day.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of incredible to imagine. Like, I remember a time before THORChain. It was not that long ago, and now with THORChain and then Maya working as well. Like, I think it's crazy to think of what was something that even today people still think is like experimental or that they don't believe it works. You see all the time on people on Twitter and things. People just people have these very big opinions about how a DeFi works that doesn't apply to THORChain or Maya, and they
Yeah,
don't understand that it works, and that's crazy. Now, the one thing that was the it is pretty cool to see that Maya's been able to replicate, THORChain's ability to just work.
hmm
There was the one weird issue with the Dash transaction sticking, which,
hmm
depending on when you're actually watching this interview, it might be a thing, might not. We'll see. We're talking about things in the future, so you might be
hmm
like, it's not a thing. But yeah, so that thing's it's got to be one of the more frustrating issues you've dealt with, right? Because it seems like you got the chain working really well. It seems like everything worked, and then it just a weird random bug that like no one really, I guess, anticipated kind of cropped up.
I lost you there for a short second,
Yeah,
but we're asking
yeah,
about Dash and how frustrating it is.
yeah. The stickening when unstuck.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, good question. So yes, it's one of the frustrating things. You have these big things working out pretty well, but then there's always this needle in the haystack thing when something doesn't work.
Hmm.
So it's sometimes it's very straightforward, and kind of the needle is laying on top of the haystack, and that's the first thing
Hmm.
you find, and that's great. But sometimes you're just trying different things, cautiously, obviously, but you're trying
Hmm.
and looking at different things, and you just kind of like in the dash on stock, we're kind of out of ideas what else it could be aside
Hmm.
from asynchrony issue that it's our current theory.
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, so a bit of context of what's happening for those that are not aware. Uh, we have a very peculiar issue on Dash where some outbounds, what is an
Hmm.
outbound? When you swap from one asset to Dash, or when you send Dash and you get a refund of Dash, that's a Dash outbound. So it's the network paying you Dash. Whereas an inbound would be the inverse, you paying the network
Hmm.
something. So now some of the Dash outbounds were getting stuck. And at the beginning, it was actually a node, a validator issue. Some some nodes hadn't scanned properly the history of Dash, so we fixed that. And then there was again a validator issue where some didn't have their ports set up correctly on Dash, so we fixed that. But by then there were some stock transactions already, uh, and then gas started being more volatile on Dash, and how the Dash team that helped us and us decided to program things, it would try and have the sensitivity to the gas price. So then more would get stuck. Then we would churn, and I would change the address where Maya can send funds from, but the transaction was still with the older address. So anyway, it just started piling up, and we ended up having a large QE, 50, 60 transactions. Um, some were paid out already. And then where we are right now is we believe that the the thing is working, but the queue is very clogged in the sense that actually
Mm-hmm.
many of the stock transactions are on being retried on the same blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So we believe it might either be that clogging issue, or it might be a synchrony issue where, for the same reason that there's so many transactions, uh,
Mm-hmm.
even if a node is trying a transaction a little bit before or after somebody else, they get stuck on a different transaction than you, so you're not synchronized in which transaction you're trying to have a ceremony for, assigning threshold ceremony. So what we're doing right now in version 107, that like you say might or might not be out when this episode is out,
Mm-hmm.
is stash specific. Is we are completely taking all of the transactions off the queue. uh, we will have zero transactions on queue. So what will happen to those transactions? We will pay them directly, manually, just
Mm-hmm.
so that we have a cleared, completely cleared queue. And what
Mm-hmm.
we really do is to make kind of orchestrated starts. So trying to have nodes be in agreement very well on Dash specifically from the get-go. About these transactions, it's around 21 unique addresses that have stock transactions. We already paid to 16 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have five more users to pay back already. So we even did it before version 107 was out. So the users are always kind of taken care of. We
Mm-hmm.
even sent them a nice 3% bump, so that they were compensated for the frustration. And obviously, it's not, crypto is wild west, and then you're not getting your funds, and you start getting worried that it might be the last you see of those funds. So we understand that even though we consider ourselves trustworthy, that doesn't mean that people are relaxed when we are kind of working on all of these things. So happy to have kind of a path to resolve it, hoping that once we turn it back on, it stops having transaction stuck. But if they do, we actually also programmed in version 107
Mm-hmm.
that an address from team can still attempt a transaction despite it being halted. And why is halted important? Because it means UIs have this automation where when we put that it's halted, they also put that it's halted on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. And second, we don't have users having their transaction stuck. So now in this time around, we are forfeiting a bit of movement on Dash because
Mm-hmm.
some nobody can add liquidity, nobody can withdraw, nobody can do any swap, even those that work, the Dash
Mm-hmm.
inbounds. But for now, we decided that since it's been taking longer than it should have, like if it had taken a week or two,
Mm-hmm.
or regioning was in the right track, but now that it seems it might be something deeper, it's good to have it halted. Use our funds to test, have it halted for the users, and if we need to have a version 108, so be it. And it wouldn't be the first challenge life throws at us. So yeah, that's more or less the story there. Uh, so when on stock, probably
Mm-hmm.
107, highly
Sí.
likely. There's nothing else. There's nothing else we see that might be pointing somewhere else. Um, but it is what it is. Code is not always
Yeah,
with
that's
you.
for sure.
So
Well,
yeah.
That definitely makes me think about, you know, back to what we were saying about THORChain and just the fact that so many people are in disbelief that everything that they've been able to do just works. And I mean, I was using THORChain in the StageNet or the ChaosNet eras, and I lost some money by you know doing that. Uh, it's it's clearly like a work of genius with a work of very talented developers. And how confident are you that the Maya developers can kind of hang with that same group of developers and keep innovation moving on Maya, seeing as this is such a hard problem to solve, like the whole architecture, and THORChain can handle it, but only because they might have some of the best developers in the whole crypto space. Do you think Maya has a good enough team to be able to keep up?
Well, where do you draw the line of good enough? That's kind of a question, and that will be subjective to everybody. So I think that's a difficult question to answer. These are the type of things that you normally can answer much better in retrospect,
Hmm.
and we don't have that retrospect with us. We, I'm fairly confident in uh, members we have in the team, in the dev team, that they're good and they know what they're doing. Uh, we have the great benefit of having THORChain also kind of clearing the path with us. We are riding two bicycles in the Tour de France or whatever, and we're the one behind. They're breaking the air, right? And I acknowledge that they're the leaders here,
Hmm.
and they have a harder job, but they also have a larger team, larger budget, a larger bit of everything. So we're making do. Uh,
Hmm.
as as for will it be good enough? I don't know. Since the beginning of Maya, I've told people like, guys, this is a high risk thing. It might work, it might not work for petty reasons. People just agreeing not to believe together. That takes all the liquidity off. That's a petty reason. For a great reason, we just got hacked. For an economical reason, we just ran out of funding.
Hmm.
So Maya is definitely the higher risk bet, but higher risk also yields higher rewards. So
Hmm.
what I can say is that we have a good dev team. We're doing our best, and we're taking things very seriously, also with fund safety and stuff. So we are going slower. So THORChain has a new version coming out every 2 to 3 weeks. It seems we are around every month to 2 months. So we're going significantly slower, uh, but slow and steady while we improve as well. The amount of development, the development of the team, just from launch to today, is crazy.
Hmm.
Like I'm super proud of them. They've improved. They are much more knowledgeable, confident, uh, and they obviously know THORChain and Maya much better even now. So how I see it is we have a soup. We have a pot. We have ingredients there. The soup is cooking, and every minute that passes, the soup is a bit hotter. So
Yeah.
that's all I see with the dev team, and I pray and hope that they remain with us for very long. Obviously, the CTO or co-founder Itzamna, he'll be around, whatever
Hmm.
whatever happens, and he's also developed spectacularly. But I hope it's the same for everybody else, that they stick around and they keep improving with us and keep working with us. And I'm also very happy that over time the amount of lines of code written not by the team, but by somebody out of the blue,
Hmm.
a community contributor is increasing. So that's very nice. I see that also quite bullish, since at the end of the day, this has to be something that outgrows us and
Hmm.
becomes something for everybody. And I always invite people to participate however they can. I don't code, so that's not an excuse either, because we gave it all away. Like we gave
Hmm.
all the cacao away at the launch. It's in the hands of you guys. So step up and let's do this together. And we obviously have the plan to work on this for a very long time, but we need also more hands, and I
Yeah.
hope that starts happening.
Well, that's a good point about giving away all the cacao because uh, one thing a lot of people don't realize about starting a liquidity pool is you start with nothing. They have to be 50-50 balanced. And as you add little bits in, it can really do crazy things with the price and make it very difficult. You lose a lot of money if you do it the wrong way. The liquidity auction was really cool because you started with balanced pools. It was just, when it's done, it's done. It's just like, it's all ready. And then Dash had the pleasure of being the first chain that did not have a balanced pool to begin with, had nothing. And then you just had like,
Hmm.
I remember those early days. I was on a trip, and in the airport, I was there on my Thor wallet on my phone, just like just doing arbitrage back and forth as like the pool starts to deepen. It was a good time. I'm sure a lot of people made money on that. But um, do you think that uh, do you think that we've learned anything of how to make that experience go smoother for like future chains that get launched? And do you think that streaming swaps could have an effect on making it easier to start a pool from like the very nothing, very beginning?
Yeah, 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 yes to both accounts. On the first one, uh, Dash is a very uh, large network that also has very
Mm-hmm.
loose authority structure.
Mm-hmm.
So who is actually kind of building Dash, or who decides what to do about Dash? And in my that was kind of a difficult question to answer.
Mm-hmm.
Thus the amount of which is not wrong, by the way. I admire that. I
Mm-hmm.
totally support that, and it just shows the amount of decentralization and kind of ownership that the community members have taken over it. That's great, but it's decentralization already always hurts coordination,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's kind of how I see how Dash turned out. Uh, in, for instance, the next two launches, the authority structure is a bit more clear. So I believe we can have a more coordinated approach. We can also coordinate a bit better with our UIs.
Mm-hmm.
If Pedro from Pro Wallet was here, he would be screaming that why did we launch on a Friday? The reason was we wanted to launch on a Monday, but then it turned into Tuesday, then Wednesday, and when we finally could push the trigger, it was Friday. So sorry.
Yeah.
So uh, yeah, just coordinate a bit more with UIs. Dash was also specifically a more difficult implementation because it's not your typical UTXO, and
Mm-hmm.
so Kujira is much more similar to Cosmos Gaia that you already have on THORChain, so that will be a bit easier. So yeah, the coordination and all that will be a bit better. And then about streaming swaps, definitely. Streaming swaps makes a shallower pool easier to work with. So right now I
Mm-hmm.
was like, hold on, wait a bit for your swap, or if you want to add LP, get cacao, but don't get a cacao to Dash, get it to
Mm-hmm.
some other pool because again. So now we will be able to essentially swap it
Mm-hmm.
for 24 hours to the pool, even if it's a very shallow pool, and still get the cacao you need to then go ahead and add LP. So it will be much easier also to get that snowball effect start
Mm-hmm.
moving
Yeah.
until it's already kind of at a better number where it's easier to manage.
Yeah. And so we're talking about other chains and things like that. So what's the roadmap for other chains? I mean, I know I've heard about it plenty internally, but obviously Dash is first. It appears to be Kujira's coming next, and then Cardano's in there somewhere. And what else?
Yeah, so we have Kujira, then Arbitrum, then perhaps one more chain. We're
Mm-hmm.
thinking what this chain might be, perhaps an L2, perhaps a more novel UTXO. We're not sure yet. We will be
Mm-hmm.
a bit opportunistic about it. And then Cardano. The reason why Cardano we have to wait a bit and there's kind of this chasm is because of the different signature scheme. They use
Mm-hmm.
Edwards curve digital signatures. So EDSA instead of elliptic curve
Mm-hmm.
digital signatures. They're technically the Edwards one is also elliptic curve cryptography, but it's in some ways wildly different. So the implementation there of the threshold signature scheme will just take a longer time, and we want to have Maya uh, have a bit more change so it can have a bit more resilience, a better base, while we have then a longer time without new chain integrations from now to Cardano. So yeah.
Yeah. And so, so far, from what I understand at least, the main differences that Maya has from THORChain are in like structure and tokenomics and things like that. And then, of course, different chains supported. But for the end user perspective, it seems to be so far just like THORChain. It's just like complete, almost like a mirror of THORChain, like a skate, like
Mhm.
almost like a sharding solution for THORChain in a certain way.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but
with a bit of a lag,
yeah,
even.
but so do you think, is this always the way it's going to be, where Maya just kind of has some sort of internal tweaks and different chains? Does Maya intend to ever, I mean, obviously this might be a question for like 5 years from now, right? But ever develop a differences that the end user can actually perceive, like different features or work
Mhm.
differently?
The main one I would say, like you say, there's some tweaks like nodes spawned LP instead of cacao, and how we launched the cacao is already there. We're non-inflationary, so those are kind of like small tokenomic tweaks. But something that's coming, and it's been in the works for years, and we're very excited about it, is a smart contract layer. Um, THORChain does not have smart contracts. Maya doesn't either, and we won't have. The reason is quite simple. You have a lot going on in Maya and THORChain. You don't really want to have smart contracts there, uh, conceivably changing some result, uh, and kind of open that up security wise. It's kind of, we want to be kind of a bank, a bank in a sense, with all the DeFi services, and you cannot have the bank have a startup inside of it. Kind of that's a simple, not accurate, but simple analogy. Um, so in our case, what we're doing is have a separate, uh, asynchronized chain, Cosmos based, with custom awesome smart contracts based in Rust, that yeah, can proliferate. Uh, this second chain also uses cacao, so we're not minting more tokens or anything for this. It also just uses cacao, gives a new use for cacao. This is good because when you generate demand for cacao, you're bringing in more TVL. So if people want, $1 million of cacao to run their smart contract, they need to buy it on Maya with assets, increasing the
Yeah.
TVL. So it just also helps this kind of flywheel effect. And why do I believe smart contracts are very, very bullish? Number one, it does affect the end user. It gives more possibilities to the end user, which its UIs and other teams can develop for them. But the second thing is, a very important thing is, THORChain and Maya are pretty bad at attracting developers, for the
You
very
can only do
simple
so
reason
much
that
with it.
yeah, because you can only do so much with it. It's a very complex system, and anything you change to it is in the on the chain itself. It's a native functionality that devs have to acknowledge and kind of work on to ship, and then nodes have to two-thirds support it to add it in. So good governance. That's great. But because of this decision of we won't have smart contracts within my THORChain, this is just a direct result of it. Uh, so once we can have smart contracts in this beautiful ecosystem, I believe we will be bringing a new horde of developers and their UIs and their teams and their investments and their capital and their users, and all of that will permeate into not only Maya but THORChain as well, which is kind of our end goal. Maya's mission was never, be number one. Our mission was, uh, uh, we want to separate money from state. We want to do whatever is in our power to make sure that happens faster, because there's no time to waste on that. Every year that passes, uh, the other side gets more powerful because
Yeah,
technology
of
cuts
course.
both ways. So thankfully, we're millions of individuals all over the world innovating, taking risks. I think that will
Hmm.
be we will be working faster than the other one, that government. But for instance, I read, I was very surprised. I've been reading more on cryptography and its history and going as deep as I can on that. And IBM with the government uh, learned many things before the public. Like they
Hmm.
already knew about differential attacks on ciphers,
Hmm.
which was something that the crypto community caught on years later, I think a decade later. So we cannot count on us being better than them because we can innovate, because we're individuals, because we can take risks, because we're on the good side of history. No, they can also have some things up their sleeves. And we need to plan on that and kind of do the best we can today so that we don't miss out on a on a future with freedom. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it makes perfect sense why, from the Maya perspective, you'd want to attach in some exogenous sort of, smart contract layer where now that provides more value for you need to get cacao from Maya to run all this stuff. That makes sense from that perspective. Now, from the outside perspective, um, with so many, the era of the Ethereum killer is almost even over now. I mean, but like everything is trying to do. There's so many L2s. There's so many smart contract chains. It's so crowded in there. What does an Aztec chain provide for developers and users that they don't already have somewhere else?
Hmm. Well, the neat thing is, aside from starting with a very good asset, cacao, that you
Hmm.
have certainty for your smart contract, that cacao has kind of like this base valuation. This is not an
Hmm.
inflated token. This token will not go down 70% day to day. Uh, so just that, the stability aspect of cacao, since it's kind of an index of all the assets we have
Hmm.
over on Maya. That's number one. But number two is that synth assets will come in by default in a neat little package.
Hmm.
So your smart contract will be able to work with synth BTC, synth ETH, synth Rune, also from the get go, without having to depend on another smart contract, rather the chain itself,
Hmm.
uh, um, and with a very secure design that the synth has. So this plus Cosmosm being a bit more amicable to develop on uh, than Solidity. It
Hmm.
just has a few less loopholes here and there. It's a bit more deterministic. Uh, it just I just believe that many will come. So
Hmm.
even then, there's kind of two smart contract worlds: the Ethereum one and the Cosmos one.
Hmm.
So we don't really need to go for the Ethereum one right away. We just need to be very useful for some of the Cosmos ones to consider to develop some of their stuff with us.
Hmm.
Um, that and people that want to be involved in the Maya ecosystem
Hmm.
uh, and do kind of UIs that touch not only the smart contracts of a Cosmos verse chain, but also the Maya and THORChain ecosystems. So yeah, we won't be necessarily, you know, some people sometimes are very diametric. You have to be the best or you're the worst.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's not really how the world goes.
Hmm.
Else most of us wouldn't have a job to start
Wow.
with.
Yeah.
So no, it's not about being the best or worst. It's about being good, being reliable, and filling some needs better. Some, and not the best, just better than the average. Because
Hmm.
information is not perfect. Like if you ask somebody what's the best place to develop, there might be a best place, but nobody knows which one it is. We don't
Yeah.
have perfect information to make those types of decisions. So we just need to be a very good candidate, such that when somebody does that analysis, they might come to the conclusion that we are not
Mm-hmm.
the best, but the best for him, because of he might just know Rust better than Solidity.
Of
Okay,
course.
great. So in that sense, uh, we're working to be very good,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that's enough to bring in. We don't need to bring 10,000 people, even 100 developers that the ecosystem didn't have before. It's already a huge win because
Mm-hmm.
100 people is more or less how many people are today involved in Maya THORChain together. So
Mm-hmm.
we doubled, and 100 is not that big of a number in
Mm-hmm.
the smart contract space. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Um, Now, when we talk about fees, for example, this is because I'm really thinking a lot about tokenomics these days because I think that it's a really good way to make sure your project goes nowhere is to have that tokenomics. Um, so fees for Aztec, who would they go to? Would they go to any of the existing Maya ecosystem?
hmm So fees on Aztec go first to nodes of Aztec. Nodes of
Mm-hmm.
Aztec had to had to already be nodes on Maya. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, the nodes on Maya are getting paid. And why this is important is nodes on Maya secure the whole damn thing,
Mm-hmm.
and they also bond the LPs. So we're indirectly also bringing a new horde of LPs, but long-term LPs,
Mm-hmm.
because a bonded LP cannot withdraw. So they're kind of longer term. The best player we can have is a long
Mm-hmm.
term LP that's also helping secure the network. So those are the ones getting paid mostly, 90%. And then at 10%, very similar to how Maya works, which we haven't touched on yet here,
Mm-hmm.
but goes to the Aztec token, which is just a revenue sharing token.
Mm-hmm.
Fixed supply, 1 million tokens, and 10% of the fees go to be shared across those Aztec tokens. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's hit on the Maya token slash Aztec token.
Yeah.
So that's one of the more interesting. That's one of the big things I think is very different from the THORChain, from what I've been able to tell. Is THORChain obviously has fully ruined bonded nodes, whereas Maya has the liquidity bonded ones, so it's more capital efficient because you don't have to have as much
hmm
rune in there. But then the other thing is
hmm
just the second token, which I didn't understand much until relatively recently, but just a pure revenue share token. So
hmm
you mind going into how the Maya token works and how you kind of came up with the idea, or if you didn't, then who did?
Yeah. Uh, it was actually people from the THORChain ecosystem that gave me not the idea for the token, but the idea to make a revenue sharing system for the developers and investors.
Mm-hmm.
So, naive Aaluxx of, a year and a half ago wanted to, more, almost 2 years ago, wanted
Mm-hmm.
to just do an ICO, and not for greed or anything. I just thought it was the only way. So, I was thinking about how much allocation to give to the developers, how much allocation to give up to the investors, how much is good, how much is abusive,
Mm-hmm.
what will be enough for the long term, uh, how could it work so that we could protect retail and LPs and not kind of devalue the token or debase it. So I was thinking these many things, and one person from THORChain ecosystem just said, "Hey, you should launch with fee revenue. Like that is a good way to go. Just get X amount of the piece." Like he gave, I think, Zcash uh, uh, reference on that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't remember. It was long ago, and so that I was like, that's a good one. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm an entrepreneur in real life, and I'm aware that small commissions on a large volume of things is good, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also fair, and users understand it, and it's clear, and people are used to paying things like that. So it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So upon working more and more and more, I started just having the issue of, well, what do we do when an investor doesn't want to keep getting that commission? They want to get out. What do they do? They cannot just pass on the contract to somebody else, because you have knowledge of the seed phrase. Even if you
Mm-hmm.
sell your wallet to somebody else, you know the seed phrase to that wallet. And also
Mm-hmm.
distributing in this system would have been very painful, because it
Mm-hmm.
had to be on the genesis of the thing. We would have to explicitly declare who got so much, what and why and how,
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of time, unchanged. So when all that started happening, or I started thinking of all of those cons to this idea, I just thought, we have a perfectly functional chain for exchanging tokens that represent something. So
Mm-hmm.
there you go. We mint X amount of tokens. Those are the ones that get the revenue share. So then whoever has the token, the chain scans the holders and pays them out every X amount of time, which we decided on 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So we came to this neat design where the team started with zero cacao. We gave all cacao away. And we have this performance-based compensation that for every $9 the ecosystem makes, we earn one, completely fair. And how the token works is, yeah, every 24 hours, whatever cacao it has accumulated from 10% of the fees, it will pay it out to you automatically to your wallet. No need to stake, no need to, no bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's been working since launch. Very, very, it's beautiful to see, and it keeps us in the right mindset where everything except value creation is a waste of time, and
Mm-hmm.
we have that laser focus, because that's the only way we earn a dime. So
Mm-hmm.
this allowed us also to rethink cacao and how
Mm-hmm.
it was going to be distributed and shared, and how we were going to jumpstart the thing. And I hope that Maya's example can bring many more chains to do a similar model, where you give away your utility token to LPs, or to the
Mm-hmm.
most important role in your ecosystem, and then you get revenue sharing very fairly, very transparently, very openly, because retail can't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Being dumped on is terrible. It's hurts our ecosystem. There's people leaving crypto because of this bullshit, and we
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be doing it anymore. There's alternatives. So this greedy model of ICOing and stuff like that, or keeping a large allocation of the utility token and then being able to sell on the rest, that's not how it should work.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed that is a long term frustration is uh, the disparity between like the utility and the way utility gets harmed by speculation. And unfortunately, with a lot of crypto models, you need speculation for utility, because you need people putting money into the token so that people who have the token can make develop on it, make it work, etc. But then
Hmm.
the ups and the downs, like when Ethereum gas fees, for example, if the price of Ethereum doubles overnight, so does the price of the gas fees, like instantly, or the base fees, for example, and you have that shock.
Hmm.
And then, or some, let's just say you buy a bunch of Bitcoin Cash because you're trying to pay people all around the world, you're trying to use money, and then someone dumps on that, or people don't think it's going to take over Bitcoin, and then your money goes down, and then you didn't care to gamble on it, but the gamblers do affect it. It's kind of interesting to sort of separate that thing out. Now, just like any innovation, the more innovative something is, the more likely it is to be illegal somewhere. So, on that subject, this seems to be. I paid a lot of attention to a lot of, in the U.S., SEC cases where they've been suing
Hmm.
crypto projects about, like, did you sell this token as a security, and a whole lot of tokens like XRP and the library token are being pushed as, well, no, it's a complete utility token. And then the SEC is saying, yes, but you sold it like a security to raise money for your project in the beginning. I mean, Ripple
Hmm.
pre-mined all of XRP and then just like sold pieces of it. And then Library had something like a 50% pre-mine, even though it's a proof of work coin. And they sold a lot of that to keep the project going, and the regulators going after that. And it seems like something like a Maya token would be a target, because it's like an explicit revenue share kind of model. It's a common interest, as one could say.
Mhm.
And so, how does that affect the Maya team, basically, or the Maya project? Is it something you're worried about, the SEC coming after and saying as a problem? Are you
Mhm.
are you worried in that in any kind of a way, or is this something you kind of like expect to happen and just want to do anyway, or what? How does that work out?
Mhm. Uh, we have very good things going for us in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that we're not even based in the US in any shape or form. We don't have any US developer. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have any US team member. We don't have any US investor. So we're kind of out of jurisdiction, first of all. We don't have any company set up anywhere, not even in the US. We don't have any foundation. We don't have any kind of paperwork tying us to any which territory. That's a second. And third, the actual utility token was given away for free, so we didn't sell it. The only problem, like you say, is Maya. And we would do something very funny when we were pitching to people, investors, VCs, whatever. Like, guys, just out of the get go, before we start, what I'm going to talk about now is totally a security. Doesn't pass the Howey test. Uh, Now, also, we didn't sell it publicly. What we sold when we've been selling Maya has been one to one, person to person, peer to peer. So it's not this public event of a selling event and an ICO. So all of these just SEC for us is a non-issue. We're also pseudonymous team using pseudonymous emails. My face is known. That's a you know something that we did decide, but only mine, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't run the nodes. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't run the thing. So in general, I believe we're very well, uh, or rather, very far apart from the SEC having any jurisdiction or doing any wrath or being any able to even do anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that hopefully this will just be for 5 years. I believe the US will have to uh, you know bend the wrist in 5 years from now. It's just two more cycles, guys. Two more
Mm.
cycles, and it's over for them. If
Why
we
do you think
put
5 years
our shit
specifically?
two cycles,
Mm.
two cycles, and we just need to get our shit together, put our minds together, stop fucking around, stop scamming people, stop doing. This is
Mm-hmm.
not. This is not. This is not a game. This is the future of your children. Whatever you do, whatever you work on, whether your children will be able to spend that freely, privately, unilaterally, without overreach. That depends on us today. This is a war. This is a revolution. This is the war of the century. I see it a lot. Like separating anything from state is always good. And from Mexico, state and religion were quite intertwined. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the best things that could have happened to Mexico was the separation of religion and state. Now we're doing something that's never happened before, essentially, which is take away their monetary rights as well. It's a violent monopoly that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Pay up or screw up, So we need to get our shit together. We need to work. We can do it in 5 years, and after that, all of it will be water under the bridge. Uh, you're a pirate, but you helped conquer America. You're a conqueror. You're not a pirate
Yeah, of
anymore.
course.
So that's how I see it as well. We're starting a new world. Some people might be on a grayish tones, or some
Mm-hmm.
people like us are doing just the right things, but overreach and bureaucrats see it as wrong for some reason. Uh, I believe after that new world is actually giving birth and is flourishing, we will
Mm-hmm.
be. no longer persecuted, and we will be no longer needing to stay with pseudonyms. Like I'd love to say who I am, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I love to. Why not? This is a very important part of my life. I'd love to be able to talk about this with friends.
Mm-hmm.
But people read news that crypto is a scam.
Yeah.
So uh, I can't. So yeah. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. I don't care really about the SEC. I'm Mexican. You have no power over me.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Mexico. I operate in Mexico. I do everything in Mexico. Uh, I can handle Mexican government if the time comes that we were
Mm-hmm.
successful enough to have a you know to be targeted in some shape or form. And as to my long term worries, I think they will go away when crypto takes predominance, and we see it in some countries. Switzerland and Salvador. I've been in both, and they both now take crypto very very seriously, and those will be the winners. The countries where and it's how democracy also grew so fast. Wherever there was democracy, people flocked to.
Mm-hmm.
Those countries grew, did better, and outcompeted any other model, monarchies, communism, whatever else. Same with crypto, I believe. Yes, it's small countries, just Salvador, just Switzerland, just Portugal, small countries, but people will start flocking to them when our
Mm-hmm.
liberties start to get threatened more and more. They're doing drowned, governments. The power over money is drowning, so they're kind of when somebody's drowning and they
Mm-hmm.
even drown you, you're trying to save because they're
Yeah.
drowning. Patadas de ahogado, we say in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think as they keep losing power, they will try to cling it to it even harder, and
Mm-hmm.
that will just exacerbate the issue and make it exponential. People will then flock to Salvador. Wealth will flock to Switzerland. People will prefer to pay taxes there, make their companies there, sell to users there. That the guy if Switzerland is very friendly, more people will go there, more people will spend their coffee, their lunch, their household, and they will be able to capture that new wave. And
Mm-hmm.
countries have a choice. Mexico has a choice, and I think it's well poised to take the crypto one. It has a choice, and the earlier it takes a choice, the better it will perform over its peers. Uh, uh,
Absolutely.
again, I believe that process is just starting.
Mm-hmm.
People wouldn't believe. I told them, guys, there will be a country that starts adopting Bitcoin. No, you're crazy, Salvador, and that's just the
Mm-hmm.
first. More will
Mm-hmm.
come. More will come, especially
Yeah.
as the dollar keeps debilitating. So it's just a matter of time, 1 to 5 years.
Well, in the meantime, it seems like the threats that the SEC is basically the bad things for being targeted as a security seem to be the result of, first of all, if you have a company, they will go after the company. And of course, you mentioned there's no Maya company. There's not the organization to go after. And even so, the people are out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, the other big thing is when you list the token as a security, you can start suing exchanges and things that host the token. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess it is to a certain extent a genius move to have an exchange platform be the one that has a security
Yeah,
token, because what are you going to delist from our own exchange? It's like it,
you can't
you
delist
know.
us because we're not listed anywhere.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And also, we don't have any UI. By the way, that's something I failed to mention. Maya
Mm-hmm.
runs no UI. We run no customer facing system.
Mm-hmm.
So if Switzerland starts changing their mind about crypto regulation, well, they could go against Tor Wallet, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're selling their users. They have the users or something, or maybe the US can go against Tor Wallet and say you cannot use Maya on the US. Okay, I stop downloads from the US. Thor Wallet. But if a US person uses Bitcoin that is not in the US jurisdiction to go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and buy cacao or Maya or whatever, that's we they didn't do it because of us. We're just chilling in Mexico. We
Mm-hmm.
have the system open. It's on the internet. Just tell your user not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's who you should be telling, not me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
out of your jurisdiction. So also because UIs is also a point of failure that we've seen, and we saw that a few weeks back. I forgot the protocol,
Uniswap,
but
right?
they went after the UI,
Mm-hmm. Oh
and they
yeah,
had
and
they had to budge.
Tornado Cash too, because the smart contract and the UI were kind of run by the same entity.
Yeah, not us, not
Mm-hmm.
us. We don't have any UI on purpose. First, to foster competition in the UI space and kind of flourish with new things and a faster development. That's first, because it has this affiliate fee design, very smart. But second, just reduce the amount of excuses somebody will have of saying we did a bad thing because we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing something fundamentally good.
Yeah, it's so obviously the more decentralized a kind of thing is, the better in terms of the more resistant against state actors. One of the reasons why you can't really go after Bitcoin that much. I mean, Satoshi just bounced, he disappeared. It wasn't like say, "Oh, I'm anonymous now. Let's hope I stay anonymous." No, he just gone. And then the idea of like who actually runs Bitcoin or who's responsible for it is just like no one. And as you mentioned with the like the coordinating the Dash integration too, it's a similar sort of situation where there might be some team that does a lot of development, but it's just kind of like the community's all over the place. And so another thing you mentioned in the early days, I remember when this was back when there was a conversation with Dash and THORChain, and THORChain made a lot of promises about integrating Dash and a few other coins. And then they later started to talk about, well, no, it's a decentralized ecosystem. We don't know what the nodes want. And it became very, very murky. And I remember conversations about, well, like Maya's starting, a team is starting Maya, a team that can make guarantees and promises and stuff like that. And then you decentralize over time. And so what, if any, are plans for, I guess, decentralization or governance in the way Maya's run? I guess at the obviously the nodes are one thing, but as far as the
Mm-hmm.
development and things like that.
So first, the code is the same and the
Mm-hmm.
JIT is the same. So the governance practices can be as similar to THORChain.
Mm-hmm.
The thing on Maya, rather than having a difference in governance, is we just have a difference of history. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
THORChain was born before they had a chain, before the code was done. So it took quite a few years, and over that time, the authority structure started to fragment, and there's
Mm-hmm.
just many voices. In the case of Maya, thankfully, because of a shorter history or a bit more efficient history, because of the better situation we had, honestly, we had it more easy. Uh, it is just the case that people trust us this time. It's too early. We've been doing a good job, and they trust our judgment, and they willingly uh, kind of accept it. But that can change because of two reasons: we do a bad job, or simply because as we grow and more people get involved, more people will start to shine whose judgment is as good as ours or better, with differing opinions or different strategies
Mm-hmm.
of where to take this. And if somebody debates and they win an argument and what they say makes sense and what they want to do is, community supports it, whatever they want to code will go through instead of
Mm-hmm.
our solution, and that's fine. And that will happen. I'm very excited for it to happen.
Yeah.
But governance wise, nodes have the full governance rights. Uh, we are everything that THORChain is doing to decentralize, we adopt as well, perhaps with a small
Mm-hmm.
lag, but not because of wanting to, just because of we're slower. And
Mm-hmm.
it is just that socially, the social consensus layer of Maya is rallied around our judgment, and I'm happy with it, comfortable with it. So that's all.
Yeah. So in a situation where, let's just say, everyone is in a all the Maya team is going on a super secret retreat, and then someone shoots a missile and takes down the plane, and the Maya team's gone, and someone else kind of creates it. Obviously, other developers can crop up. The Maya team has had the Maya token to sell to be able to finance, the kind of growth of the project. And so I guess it
Hmm.
would be in like a long term scenario. It would be, I guess, a new development team might just be people who buy up a bunch of the tokens and then start, or someone buys up a bunch of the tokens and says, or we accept payment in my token, then the my token holders would pay them some of their shares, I guess, in order to make sure their investment still has value long term because of
Hmm.
development.
Or cacao, or donations, or they can have a UI. They have a UI. They earn affiliate fees, and they're just interested. THORSwap on THORChain, they do hell of a lot for the third chain ecosystem. Why? Because they have a financial interest to do so, and it's not inflation. It's not paying them. It's the affiliate fees they charge on the UI. So yeah, I think we have a very sustainable thing in the sense that something that's generating economic value very efficiently. That means there will be players interested in its long term survival just because it's economically viable. That's all.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So, what does the next year for Maya look like? What kind of stuff are you looking forward to over the next year?
Well, bringing in a lot of the futures of blockchain we yet don't have, Saver, streaming, swaps, lending, bringing in more chains. Like I told you, Kujira, Arbitrum, some other, Cardano, and then some other after. And the Aztec chain, smart contracts, bringing in more developers, more innovation, more UIs. So that's it. It's just the work we're doing. Just keep going. We don't really see a situation where we really need to pivot at this time. Uh, Believe me, I pivoted in the past, but right now I do see a clear path towards success. We just need to focus and do things faster, safely. That's it.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for the chat. Where are we gonna set? Where would you send people if you want to send them to click in any links?
Uh, well, you can go to our website, myprotocol.com, or the docs, docs.myprotocol.com. You can find out a lot about it there. Or if you want to go ahead and start using all these, you can just head straight into eldorado.market or to thorwallet.org and use Maya tomorrow. Good luck and welcome to Maya, guys. And thanks for having me.